I just had never imagined that owning a business would be possible, or there like having a podcast would be possible, or that there were ways that I was going to connect and collaborate with all these amazing individuals who are doing these incredible things.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. This is Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 301 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. So glad you've joined me, and if this is the first time for you to listen in, glad you found us. Hope you'll take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might listen to it. So looking forward to you hearing from my guest, Christy Pennison. And Christy is a person I've known for the last few years, and I don't know why in the world I haven't had Christy on the podcast before now, but here she is, and I'm so glad she joined me. And in this particular episode, we're going to kind of dive in deep and talking about some of the essences of personal and professional growth, and just how we can think about that differently, and just being able to get away from a lot of the limiting beliefs that I think a lot of us are handed through our training, and just being able to think about things in new ways, and also just about how we can tap into more creativity and being able to think about ourselves and our careers and how we do what we do in different ways. And hopefully this will be inspirational for you in just thinking about those kinds of things. But real quickly here, before we get to my conversation with Christy, a couple of things I'd love for you to check out. One is my assistant Rachel has put together for people some Instagram templates. And these are templates that you can use in the Canva app to create personalized or interesting posts that you can put on Instagram. And if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/Insta templates, you can check those out. And this is a set of templates that you can download through the Gumroad platform, and it's just $22 for the set of templates. And it's about 50 different templates that you can use and add your logo to and customize in any way you want to. But they're there to make your life easier and have to work less or do things easier on Instagram. One little secret is that Rachel's my Instagram guru when it comes to this podcast, but she's done a wonderful job. And so check it out, practiceoftherapy.com/Insta templates. And the other thing I'd love for you to check out is one of my good friends. Her name is Ashley, and she's been helping my family for a while, and she's one of the caregivers for my wife who is disabled. But Ashley has put together an Etsy store, and I just want to help her promote that. If you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/mental health wear, you can see all of the things that she is creating and designing that are related to our profession. There are t-shirts, there are decorative items, and all of it has to do with either us as professionals or just being mental health aware, and also helping people be inspired through around addiction recovery. But if you'll go check it out, practiceoftherapy.com/mentalhealthware. And if you will use the coupon code POT discount, POT as in practice of therapy discount, you can get $25% off any orders over $30 or more. So I invite you to go over and check it out. Just go to practiceoftherapy.com/mentalhealthware and then use the coupon code POT discount to get 25% off your orders of $30 or more. So I invite you to go check it out. And also, real quickly here, before we get to my conversation with Christy, I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Psychcraft Network and also our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Hi there. I'm super excited to welcome you back to the brand new season of Scaling Therapy Practice podcast. This is the show where we encourage you to take deliberate steps towards sustainable growth. I'm your host, James Marland. In season 2, we're specifically focused on one main topic: marketing for mental health providers. Every week, we're going to share about different parts of marketing, giving you simple tips and tricks to grow your mental health business. Every episode from season 2 will have a download or a handout from the show. So sign up for our newsletter so you don't miss these valuable resources. Good news, I'm not going to be doing the show alone. I've got some awesome friends who are going to be joining me from the Psychcraft Network. You're going to hear from Lisa Mustard, Steve Bisson, Dawn Gabriel, and other special guests. We've joined forces for this season to share helpful advice on things we've learned and even the mistakes we've made so that you don't have to make them. As the weeks go by, listen to us cover lots of topics on marketing, such as social media, how to market your own therapist, how to speak in public, and even how to start your own podcast or even just guest on podcast shows. We really want to hear from our listeners, so send us your questions, your comments, your thoughts to james@coursecreationstudio.com. That's james@coursecreationstudio.com. Make sure you check out season 1, which is out now, and it has lots of tips on scaling your therapy practice. Just go to coursecreationstudio.com and click the podcast section. So join us every Monday. We're going to learn a lot about intentional and sustainable growth for your therapy practice.
Have you ever wished your private practice could run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine? Well, look no further, because TherapyNotes is here to revolutionize your practice. TherapyNotes is the complete practice management system you've been dreaming of. With everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with clients remotely, create rich documentation, and handle insurance billing, it's your secret weapon for a smoother practice. And the best part? It's accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Yep, even on the go. Imagine having more time for what truly matters, your clients. It's like having an extra set of hands, but digital. And here's the kicker. It's the very EHR Gordon relies on in his own practice. So, you know it's the real deal. Say goodbye to paperwork nightmares and hello to more time and better quality care. Check out TherapyNotes today at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. Oh, and don't forget to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. That's practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes with the promo code GORDON. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome again to the podcast. And I don't know why this hasn't happened before now, but I am so glad for you to get to know Christy Pennison. And Christy is one of those people where we've had a lot of network things together and gotten to know each other pretty well over the last few years. And Christy, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, Gordon, because, I fangirled you for a long time when I was getting my start in the private practice world, because, it was a world that I had to get acclimated to because I had never done it before. So you really helped me a lot by the information and resources you put out there.
Well, you're awfully kind. You're awfully kind to say that. Well, Christy, as I start with everyone, and folks, what you're gonna hear from Christy is just so much positive energy and enthusiasm for what we do. And that's one of the reasons I needed to have her on the podcast. But Christy, as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Yeah, well, I am located in Alexandria, Louisiana, and I currently have a group practice that has two locations. One that's in Alexandria and one's in Natchitoches, Louisiana. And how did I land where I landed? I really think it's because I had a vision, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I was in a
Mm-hmm.
place where I had a job for quite a long time in community mental health that was a passion and then became a real stuck place for me as there were changes and leadership shifts and things like that. And it was no longer aligned with my values. And so I got into a place of burnout and overwhelm and just wasn't sure what I was going to do next. So I jumped out into anything that wasn't that and
Mm-hmm.
took about a year just to kind of reconnect with myself because I'd lost myself along the way. And one day I came back to my hometown that I said I would never move back to. And really I can say it was like a light bulb went off that I was supposed to move back to my hometown and start this practice called Be Inspired Counseling and Consulting. Had no idea what I was gonna do or how I was gonna do it, but 3 months later I packed my daughter up, sold my house, my multiple rescue animals, and moved back to where I'm from and started a solo practice that then grew into a group. So it's just been an incredible journey when I think about myself in the past 4 years that's happened, even through a pandemic and lots of craziness
Mm-hmm.
of just like what is possible when you get out of your own way and trust what you feel like you're being called or drawn to do.
Yes, yes, and I think for those of us that have just kind of branched out beyond just kind of the traditional way of what we're taught in school, and but we're like you, Christy. I started out working for an agency, and really just kind of got, as you said, burned out, and so it's interesting how how many parallel stories there are just around all of this. And I think one of the things that I love about what you do is your creativity and being able to think outside the box about things. So tell folks just kind of what has inspired you while over the years.
Yeah, well, there's multiple things that inspire me throughout the years. I do think that getting around good mentors or people that it can expand your mindset, like people like you, Gordon, or people that are just doing things that are a little bit outside the box. Because, like you said, when I went to graduate school, I had this idea when I graduated that I was actually not the person that was going to go into private practice. I was like, I'm going to need a 9 to 5 job that has steady income because I'm also a single solo parent. And I just had never imagined that owning a business would be possible, or there like having a podcast would be possible, or that there were ways that I was going to connect and collaborate with all these amazing individuals who are doing these incredible things. So I think the
Mhm.
first thing is just being able to put yourself in places and spaces that can expand your view of what could be possible for you. Because a lot of times, we just grow up in our own environments or our own silos that tell us or give us a narrative of this is how your life should be. And so if you
Mhm.
don't intentionally put yourself in places, and it could be things like listening to podcasts or reading a book or trying to connect with people at a conference that you're like, I might be the only person that I know that's going there, but I'm going to go with the
Mhm.
intention to learn and grow. And when you allow yourself space or just time to even reflect on where is it that I want to go next? What do I want my life to be like? What are the possibilities for me? Then you can really start to expand your view of what could actually be possible for you.
Yeah, yeah, could totally agree. And I think being able to, we throw this term around a lot, the thinking outside the box, but I think allowing ourselves to be creative and be able to think of other possibilities. And I think one of the ways, as you mentioned, as you alluded to, by being around other people that have kind of the same mindset, we start learning stuff that we didn't even know we didn't know. And so that's always cool when that happens.
Well, and people that can help you challenge your limited mindset. Like, 'cause I can think of some of the people that we've gotten to know collaboratively together who, when I'm in a stuck place or I have this limiting thought that, oh, that's not something that I can do, then they can quickly help me realize that may not be an accurate belief. And so when you are in those groups of people that do have this kind of mindset of like, what can we do to learn or grow or expand what our roles as our therapists? There is traditional roles of therapists, but there's like, I didn't even know there was all the things that you could do, from being like, a coach to like using your skills to do consulting and like, workplace settings, or write books or do podcasts or be a social person that helps encourage and influence people to help them know how to navigate their life. There's so many things you could do, but you have to be able to get in places and spaces where there is other people that may also have that ideas or creativity that they're trying to tap into.
Right. Yeah. So in your journey, Christy, how have you tapped into all of that? As far as just thinking about, I know you've got your practice, you've got your podcast, you've got all of these things. What is it that helped you kind of tap into that? Besides, we talked about the people that we've come in contact with, but what would be some other things that help you tap into all of that?
Well, look, this is going to sound very basic when I say it. And we are talking, I know a lot of the listeners are therapists, right? So what I'm about to tell you is going to be something that you probably tell a lot of people to do, but maybe struggle to do yourself. And there is no shame in that as well. But one of the things I think that's really helped me, besides just the people piece, is to really allow time and space for reflection. And I am going to give a disclaimer. I do not always do this well, but I've really tried to cultivate a morning routine that allows me space to journal or ask reflective questions of myself of like, hey, how did this past month go? What were the highlights? What are something that you learned? What are some other opportunities that you think that you could expand on? How's your energy? What do you need more of? But not only just journaling. Another thing that's really helped is then also reading. And I am a terrible reader in a lot of ways. Like, I don't just sit down and read a book in like 2 minutes, right? But I read progressively over a period of time. And I think reading also helps you gain ideas or gain insights. And it's always interesting, Gordon. I don't know if you ever had this happen. Do you ever have it where you're like reading something and you're like, man, this is just what I needed for this moment?
Right. Yeah.
But you had to give yourself the space to like actually have time to do it. And I think what's hard, and I'm going to talk about myself here for a minute, especially I call us achiever therapists.
Right.
Therapists that like really want to make things happen and achieve things, which there's nothing wrong with that. But we have a hard time realizing that the doing nothing is just as important as the doing. And so giving yourself that time, whether it be a walk in nature, whether it be, whatever space or place that allows you to tap into creativity. If you're a person of faith, to tap into whatever spiritual belief systems that you have. I think all of that is really underrated, but highly important for you to be able to figure out, okay, what else is there for me? What is giving me energy and what's draining me? What do I need to delegate to? Because I was thinking about us before we pushed recording, right? There's some things that are life suckers that just suck the life out of me. And fortunately, I've gotten to a place in my practice, but it didn't start out that way, where I can now delegate some things to others. But just allowing yourself to have that space to give you what you need so that you can show up in the best version of you as possible to help move the needle forward on whatever vision that you have.
Right. Yeah. Again, just totally agree with all of that. And I think being able to, really in many ways, we're talking about just slowing down enough to be able to give yourself those space. Like you, Christy, some of the most the way I read now is through Audible. So I've been doing, yeah, I mean, it's just that's just, I'm just kind of a listening and visual learner anyway. So, I mean, being able to listen to books, I've been, it's interesting. I've been rereading, and I'm using air quotes here, Malcolm Gladwell's book called David and Goliath. And it just talks about how underdogs have triumphed over the years in different situations. And I think kind of what you're talking about too, that he alludes to in that book, is not doing things necessarily in the conventional way. I mean, that whole, for folks that are familiar with that story from the Bible of David and Goliath, which I think most people have heard it, even if they're not necessarily church folk, but, David overcomes this giant, and it's because he engaged with that giant in an unconventional way. In other words, the giant was expecting him, Goliath was expecting him to go into hand-to-hand combat. But David, thinking outside the box, was able to overcome that in a much different way.
With a little old rock.
A little old rock. That's right. That's right. Just a little old rock. And so anyway, not to get too far off on that, but I think you're exactly right. Is giving ourselves the space, the downtime, all of that, to be able to really clarify things for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and I know when I can't solve problems well, and you know this, Gordon, as a group practice owner, sometimes there's a lot of problems you have to be solving, or solutions you have to find, or we have this challenge. And when you're the leader, people are often looking to you to come and have these creative solutions, which I try to put it back on them nowadays and be like, look, well, can you solve it? I don't got to solve everything. But I think that giving yourself what you need to show up as clear and as calm and whatever as possible in field, I think what I'm seeing a lot of is, even if you get into private practice, there's a tendency in this profession to get to burnout, and it sneaks up on you. It's like this little thing that you don't see coming, and then wham, it knocks you on your side, and then you think, well, I don't have time to slow down and take care of me, but I think really to create the biggest impact for yourself and for others, it is essential. And trying to switch our mindset from the fact that slowing down is something that is valuable and just as important as anything else that we do.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's something that I think we have to be very intentional about, because we can get really busy with stuff. I mean, I'm terrible for that. I mean, I just pile on more and more, and not gotten better about saying no to things. But yeah, it's really easy to do.
And you bring up a good point, and this is where I'd also say is really being able to get clear and take the time to write down. And we talk about goals in our sessions with our clients, right? Let's make some goals, and this is what we're going to aim towards. But so often we get busy in our life and we don't set goals for ourselves, and we don't set goals, or we may set goals for our business, but we may not set goals for our health or our relationship, or our own well-being. And so then what happens is life happens and everything takes over. And then all of these things that may have supported us over time then start to become something that we'll do one day. I'll go on that walk one day. Man, it's really hot outside, at least it is right now where I live. Do I need to actually take time to do something outside in nature? That's really not a priority right now. Do I really need to go visit my friends when I have all of these emails that I have to respond to? But it's taking the time to say, how do I want to be intentional in my life, about my life, not just about the work that I'm doing too. I think it's important.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found helpful, and I, being honest here, not always as good and with it as I should, but I've got a planner, and people have heard me talk about it before, the full focus planner I use that was created by the Michael Hyatt Company, but it's got something that it has in the weekly, it's got the weekly review that you do. And so you actually are very intentional about really thinking about, okay, what's most important to me right now, and really being able to set aside the time to focus on those things that I know are important for me to be doing right now. Otherwise, you just get busy, get busy being busy, and it really doesn't move the needle forward much.
Well, and you said something earlier, Gordon, that I'm thinking about now that you're saying this. It helps you figure out what you need to say no to, right? Because I don't know about you, but there are certain things. I'm like a recovering people pleaser. And so if people would say, Christy, can you do this? I'd be like, I want to help. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, Christy, can you do this? And I'm like, yes. So I became this yes person that started saying yes to things. And I realized, no, I can't do everything. If I can't do it, can I ask somebody else and give them an opportunity that I don't have the time to do, but they maybe would like love that opportunity. So I think that intentional reflection, like you said, you're doing, and I use the passion planner. So it's a little bit different than the full focus planner, but it actually does it like once a month. It has like a little place that you can reflect during the week, but not as, I think, intensive as the one that you're talking about. But, it really gives you a space to say, okay, I need to say no to these things. I need to say no, thank you. Not at this time, maybe another time. And when you learn the art of saying no to the things that are not priority for you, then it frees you up to have the space and time to do those things we're talking about, like reflect, take a moment to breathe, have dinner with your family, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And you had said something a little bit earlier too, Christy, about those things that suck the energy out of us, those things that maybe we just don't enjoy doing, that are just really kind of drudgery. And this is one of the things that's hard thing for people to do, but finding somebody else to do those things, taking it off your own plate and learning to outsource. I think, I learned that I bootstrapped way too long in my practice and what I've done and all of that sort of thing.
Well, and look, I'm telling you, I remember I was pretty hard to let go at first when I started to grow, to delegate things. And I still do not have this perfect. So like you said, Gordon, like when we're talking about these things, no, it's an ebb and flow. It's not always 100% consistent practices that we do. Like, let's normalize this for people. But I will say that the delegation piece frees up so much, but it's hard. And I don't know if this is the reason why it's hard for you, Gordon, but I grew up in a hard work ethic family, which means that if you could do it, you should. So if you can mow your lawn, you should. If you can, clean your house, you should. And it's really been interesting because I've had to work on my mindset as I've grown in the business of therapy, in the practice of therapy, not only the day-to-day practice, but like the practice of even growing a therapy business, to change my mindset around that, because I only have so many times in a day. And just because I can doesn't mean I should. And it's trying to get clear on, if I want to be the greatest agent of change and impact the most amount of people, I have to let other people support me. And I also have to realize I don't have to weigh the burden of doing it on my own. Thank God. Okay. Because I think sometimes we just put a lot of burden and responsibility on ourselves to do all this stuff on our own. But, you think about the story in David and Goliath, right? Like, yes, David came and threw the slingshot, but there was a whole other army that had his back, right? That supported him. It wasn't just him, And I was even watching the cyclist documentary the other day about one of these cyclists that does the Tour de France or whatever. Right. And I was just so shocked because I thought these people just, bicycled by themselves. And then I realized, no, they have a whole team that's actually bicycling at the same time as them, as fast as them sometimes, to position them to these, I guess, positions so that they can win at this certain point in the race. And then they have people that are falling behind them to get them a new bike. I mean, it just blew my mind because I never really watched it until I watched this documentary.
Right.
Like, this one person winning is not just this one person winning. It's a lot of people behind them getting them to the finish line. And so when you realize that you cannot do it on your own, and there are people that want to help you and want to support you and want to grab the vision that you have in the places that you're going, then it's letting them and saying, hey, I need help. I can't do it on my own, which is ironic, right? Because this is the whole thing about therapy, right? I can't do it on my own. I need somebody to help me work through this.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard to do it ourselves.
Yeah, it really is. And I think another thing that we have to kind of overcome is, we like to think of ourselves as the expert, and we like to think about, well, I know all of this stuff. I know everything, but, we're human beings. And so we have to have that help. And we're also social creatures. I mean, even if you're wired as an introvert versus an extrovert or whatever, we still need people around us to support us and move through things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's like, no matter what area of our life, creating possibilities, or even creating, I just went on vacation last week. And it was so wonderful because, even though there was a few things I checked in on and I knew I was going to have to check in on, for the most part, I mean, I was actually sick the week before that, but guess what? The sky didn't fall. And actually guess what happened when people didn't have me around to help them solve the problems? They solved it, and they maybe even did a better job than I would do. So I think sometimes it's realizing that, you have to give yourself space, just like you want to encourage them to take the time for rest and recharge or whatever. But it's everybody going towards the same goal can actually have a lot more momentum than just one person trying to go there.
Right. Yeah. And it's in many ways, it's kind of the ultimate thinking outside the box, because certainly I have ideas about things that I do and certain ways of doing things. But if you hand it off to somebody else, they might come up with an even better way of doing it and might even do it better than you think you can do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, and then when you're given feedback, like in real time, then it actually can get better because you're doing it collaboratively versus just by yourself. Because that feedback can be like, because I know a lot of times I'll give a project off to somebody. I'm doing better about this, Gordon. I've been trying, because I've realized I have to remind myself as we're talking about this, let go, let go, let it go. That Frozen song, but it's like, let go and then give feedback. So if you are handing something off to somebody and you say, hey, here's what I need, make it happen. And it's not exactly as you envisioned it, or you think it could be a little bit better, just give feedback in a nice way. Hey, I love how you did this, this, and this. And the next time you do this, can you pay attention to this? Or can this look a little bit differently? Or how can we make this better? Is a great question too, that, you can ask other people, and they could even come up with a solution of how to make it a little bit better than what you think it could be.
Right. Oh, well, Christy, I love these kinds of things that we're talking about, and I've got to be respectful of your time. What are some other parting thoughts? And also tell folks about how they can reach you and some of the things that you're offering folks, particularly your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say my last thoughts would be just realize that there are possibilities. There are things that I'm continuing to expand in my life that I wake up sometimes in a life that I'm like, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have thought this is possible. So life can change in a very short period of time. I once heard someone say that people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but they can underestimate what they can actually get done in 3 to 5 years. And I feel like part of my story is living proof of that, is that, sometimes we think change does take time, but it is possible. And I do think that if you feel stuck or overwhelmed in life, just like we help our clients, you too can have a life that you feel good about waking up in. It may be hard. It doesn't mean it's like devoid of challenges or obstacles or overwhelming things. I mean, those still happen. Life happens, but it can be a little bit more aligned with how you would want to live your life or the vision that you see for yourself. But if you want to get in touch with me or listen to some of the episodes that we have on this very topic, You can check out Inspiring Possible on any of your streaming platforms or inspiringpossible.com. And then another way you can connect with me is something exciting that maybe we'll come back and talk about on another episode that me and one of my friends, practice owner friends, are working on. And that's called the Practice Collab. It is pretty much where you're doing things in community with other practice owners, because I think a lot of times we can get siloed in our world, and the more on the top you get, the lonelier it gets. So sometimes being in collaboration can really help you move the needle forward. So, and you can find me on social media at Christy Pennison, all the different places.
Awesome. And we'll have links here in the show notes and the show summary so folks can get a hold of you easily. And so, Christy, I'm so glad you're on the podcast, and I know I've got to have you back. So we'll do it again.
Oh yeah, we'll talk again. Well, Gordon, thank you so much for what you do to help people that are aspiring to figure out how to do this practice of therapy a little bit differently or better, to create possibilities for them. Because I think when we do share our stories, it then encourages other people like, hey, if somebody's figured this out, maybe I can too.
Yeah, I say all the time, if I can do it, then anybody else can as well. Well,
me too.
Yeah.
I'm from small town Ball, Louisiana, which people would not be able to find it on a map. Okay. I mean, the dream around here was like, and it's not a bad dream, but it was like, you get married and you just settle down, and all that is great, but there is more possibilities in life than, sometimes what we are exposed to growing up. So allow yourself to dream and realize that dreaming is actually something I feel like we were part of us created to do. I feel like we wouldn't have dreams if we couldn't dream. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Well, thanks, Christy. And we'll have you back here soon. Well, I'm so glad that I got to have that conversation with Christy. Again, as we talked about in that interview, I think making those connections of like-minded people and people that can be supportive and helping you be more creative in your practices just goes a long way in getting us ahead. And also just makes our work much more meaningful when we can do those things that nurture our creativity with stuff. Again, as we talked about, there are so many different things that we know as therapists and counselors and those of us in this profession, in these professions, that translates in so many other ways. And so give yourself permission to tap into that, and also find a community that you can get involved in. I've mentioned on this podcast before, I have two communities that I have going. One is the Practice Launch Club for those just getting started in private practice, and also the Group Practice Focus Group. And you can check that out by going to practiceoftherapy.com. But also check out Christy's communities. I think it's important to find those communities that are a good fit for you. And again, the links are in the show notes for all of those things. And so I invite you to go check it out. Also, check out the Instagram templates. You can get to those by going to practiceoftherapy.com/Insta templates. And also check out my friend Ashley's Etsy store by going to practiceoftherapy.com/mental health wear. And again, big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. They're the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice. Couldn't operate without them. And I'm always impressed with all of the new features they're adding, and just their responsiveness is just incredible. And be sure and use the promo code just Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. And just go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes to find out more. So take care, folks. Looking forward to our next interviews. Got a lot of great guests lined up. And thanks for being with me on this journey and being part of this community through your listening. Even though you might not have signed up for anything, you're still part of it just by listening to the podcast. And be sure to check out all the other great podcasts that are on the Psychcraft Network. And you can go to psychcraftnetwork.com and see all of those great folks there as well. So take care, folks, and we'll be back with you again next week. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.